Yellowstone National Park is located in the western United States, largely in the northwest corner of Wyoming and extending into Montana and Idaho. The park is known for its wildlife and its many geothermal features, especially the Old Faithful Geyser, one of its most popular. While it represents many types of biomes, the subalpine forest is the most abundant and is home to many large predators, including black and brown bears. People who visited Yellowstone prior to the 1970s often remember seeing bears along roadsides and within developed areas of the park. Although observing these bears was very popular within park visitors, it was not good for people or the bears. In 1970, the park initiated an intensive bear management program to return the grizzly and black bears to feeding on natural food sources and to reduce bear-caused human injuries and property damage. The measures included installing bear-proof garbage cans and closing garbage dumps in the park. To this day, bears are still seen near roads, and they may be seen occasionally in the wild. Grizzly bears specifically are active primarily at dawn, dusk, and night. Over the years, the close contact between the humans and bears have caused many unfortunate tragedies. On Thursday, April 15th of 2021, Charles Carl Mock, a 40-year-old, decided to go fishing west of a park in Montana located in Yellowstone National Park. Mock was a guide at Back County Adventure, which provides snowmobile rentals and tours in Yellowstone National Park and surrounding areas of the national forest. He truly had a love for the outdoors and had been fishing in the same area all week without any problems. The area where he was located was nearby to a large moose carcass that attracted some very large predators. It's not known if Mock was fishing at this time or if he wanted to take pictures of the scenery in the area, but after a few hours, he found himself in close contact with a large grizzly. It slowly moved closer towards him. The grizzly was most likely guarding its kill of the moose carcass, and once it spotted Mock, the male bear rushed him. It brutally mauled Mock near the Baker's Hole campground, about 2 miles north of West Yellowstone. In his struggle, he was able to call 911 just before 3:45 p.m. It's not sure if Mock was able to deploy bear spray or not, but if he did, the 400-plus pound bear was not affected and continued to maul him. Mock was on the phone with a dispatcher for nearly an hour. He said he had been taking pictures and the bear suddenly attacked him, and while he was on the call, he tried to direct them to his location. But when help arrived, Mock had already suffered severe injuries to his head. He was taken by ambulance to a nearby medical center in Idaho Falls and underwent immediate surgery. 2 days later, he died from the injuries he sustained from the attack. The bear responsible stayed in the area of the attack. On April 16th, 7 investigators and a dog hiked into the area, aware that the bear may still be around, and if it was, it may have to be killed. The team stopped and fired cracker rounds and hollered several times as they hiked into the area. As they got close to a boggy, wet part of the forest, they could see brush and a small tree move. All of the members stopped and readied in case it was a bear, and within seconds, a bear silently charged out of the bush with its head down, ears back, and was running full out. It was briefly slowed by deep snow before digging its way clear and beginning to charge again. 3 officers called out that they were going to fire warning shots at the bear, but when the bear started charging the group, they had no choice but to kill the animal. The grizzly bear tissue was found to have parts of a moose carcass and another bear. Also, its location in the bear's lower stomach suggested the bear had possibly been in a very recent fight with another grizzly bear defending the moose carcass. This would explain why the overall aggressive defense of the moose carcass was targeted towards Mock. Mock's camera, which was found at the scene of the attack, was placed in his vehicle, and friends removed his vehicle from the area. Investigators did not have the opportunity to examine the camera at the time, and when they looked at the memory card on April 17th, there were no pictures from the Baker's Hole area or any from the day of the attack. The bear that attacked Mock was a known 20-year-old male that had been captured in September 2003 near Cascade Creek, which is northwest of Canyon Valley in Yellowstone National Park. He was captured as part of the park's annual grizzly study, and after being captured, the bear was tattooed and collared. Its last known location was the following February, when it was denned north of Norris Geyser Basin. The bear had no history of run-ins with humans until this attack, and considering its age and the fact it recently came out of hibernation, the 411-pound bear was fairly healthy with a few worn and broken teeth. Following the attack, the moose carcass was blown to bits by explosives to avoid attracting other predators. The campground and area near the attack were closed by Custer-Gallatin National Forest officials until the moose remains had time to deteriorate or to be consumed by other wildlife. This is the story of the 2 bear attacks that occurred in Yellowstone National Park that have been assumed to have been caused by the same bear family. After camping for the night at Grant Village, Brian Matayoshi and his wife Marilyn started out on the morning of July 6th on a hike to Clear Lake. They then returned to a trail junction and began hiking east toward Ribbon Lake on the Wapiti Lake Trail. At 10:05 a.m., the couple met a single hiker who pointed out into the open valley a female grizzly bear with 2 cubs. The bears were grazing and digging in an open meadow between 300 and 500 yards south of the trail. The Matayoshis talked with the hiker about the bears and watched them with binoculars. Marilyn spent several minutes taking photographs of the bears before the couple began to head east along the trail. The last photograph of the bears was taken at 10:25 a.m. The couple continued along the trail, walking about a half mile before they turned around because of how bad the mosquitoes were getting. On their way back, they saw a large grizzly bear within 25 yards of the trail and 100 yards away from their position. Once they saw the bear, they turned around and started hiking back up the trail toward the cover of trees that was behind them. But as they were walking away, the bear raised its head and spotted the couple. Then, the bear started moving towards them, and Brian told his wife to run. In all of the couple's trips to Yellowstone, they had never seen bears. The Matayoshis were yelling and shouting as they ran down the trail away from the bear, covering around 173 yards from their location where they first saw it. But the bear caught up to them and attacked Brian, just as he took cover behind a small downed tree on the north side of the trail. At that moment, Marilyn heard her husband yell, and she turned around just to see the large bear hit him. Brian Matayoshi sustained a number of injuries from the attack, including a deep cut on his forehead, a deep cut on his right triceps, and claw marks that did not break the skin on his head, chest, and back, while his right leg suffered several bite marks, including a huge wound which resulted in significant blood loss. Brian was mauled to death, and the cause was assumed to be a combination of blunt force trauma and blood loss. Marilyn Matayoshi, who witnessed the entire thing, said the cubs were running behind their mother and growling. At some point, she got up to her knees to take her camera off, at which point the bear noticed and moved towards her. She dropped face down to the ground and played dead. Then she felt a tug on her backpack, and suddenly, the bear was gone. Marilyn then went to her husband and tried to use a jacket to stop the bleeding on his leg, but Brian had likely stopped breathing by the time she reached him. Marilyn then tried 21 times to call 911 on her cell phone, but she couldn't get reception. Between 10:51 a.m. and 11:15 a.m., nearby hikers also called 911 at least twice to report a bear roar and yelling and screaming from the location of the incident. An audio recording of one 911 call described the initial sounds of the attack from several hundred yards away. During one of the calls from the group, a man identifies himself as a trauma surgeon and asks the dispatcher if he should go help. "All I can hear is the lady's voice right now. I'm worried that the man may be injured. There's 6 of us and I'm a trauma surgeon, so I can give this guy some assistance." The dispatcher responds in the recording that a ranger is nearby, telling him to stay where he's at in case it's dangerous. The rangers arrived within minutes and determined Brian Matayoshi was dead. Only a few months later, John L. Wallace, a Michigan resident, had set out for a day hike on the Mary Mountain Trail at about 7:30 a.m. on August 25th. He apparently had stopped for a snack or perhaps a drink of water about 5 miles from the trailhead when he was attacked. The attack occurred in an area of mixed pine, meadows, and rolling hills that the trail passes through. A father and daughter out hiking the trail the following day found his body, which had been under duff and debris, a common practice of bears who planned on returning to a kill. Wallace was found on his back, with his feet sprawled across the trail. His day pack had been pulled onto his body, along with duff and dirt, while his rain jacket, 2 water bottles, and a plastic lunch container were nearby. The attack was the second fatal mauling in the park last year, and marked the first time anyone could recall 2 fatal maulings in 1 year in Yellowstone. Investigators looking into the Wallace mauling were able to conclude that DNA analysis of scat that the sow that killed Mr. Matayoshi was at the scene of Mr. Wallace's death. The presence of bloody adult and cub tracks suggests that the adult female that killed Brian Matayoshi and one of her offspring were likely involved in the consumption of John Wallace's body. However, there could have been other bears involved. Wallace was either stopped along the trail or stopped in reaction to a close encounter with a bear at the time he was attacked. He tried to defend himself from the attacking bear, as evidenced by bite marks to his hands and arms. Portions of his body were consumed during the approximate 24-hour period between when he was killed and when his body was initially found by the 2 hikers the next day. There is DNA evidence of at least 4 different grizzly bears at or near the site where his body was found. While Wallace had told a campground concessions worker the day before his death that he was a grizzly expert, he was hiking alone in an area with a high concentration of grizzlies without any bear spray. 2 bison carcasses were nearby, which is why there are so many grizzlies in the area. Though the landscape where Wallace was attacked was fairly open, visibility was hampered by its rolling nature and vegetation. Both are truly tragic events that seem to follow a pattern: hikers who suddenly startle bears, and the ending is normally unfortunate.